So John, before our break, we talked about the fact that you went back to St. Clair to register.
I re-registered in St. Clair because I transferred my papers.
Okay. So you actually joined the service. Your date was July 20th, 1942.
Yeah.
Okay. Where did you go from once you'd been drafted?
Well, they drafted me and I had to report to the bus station in Mankato. That's where I was inducted. Then I went to Fort Snelling, St. Paul, and that's where I got all of my clothing, all my shots, and everything that needed to be issued to me. So we spent 2 or 3 days there. Then we were loaded onto, I think they were buses that we went on, and went to Fort Riley, Kansas. That's where I got my basic training. And so it was there, and that's where we got all, that's where I went into the motor pool for training, and we went to the rifle range, and we did all of the training that we needed. And so we had a sergeant that he was an old full-time or career sergeant,
regular Army,
that had been in the cavalry. He had the pointed hat and the strap on. He was tough. Well, coming with a bunch of rookies, you know, they had to be tough. It's just like sometimes the programs you see on TV. That's the way it was. And so, but they were very strict. And so we didn't get off a camp. We get passes, but there was a town, Junction City, not too far from the camp. And so we would walk to town sometimes. It'd take us probably half, 3/4 an hour to walk to town. Well, we'd spend some time in town, and then we'd walk back because our pass was good till midnight. Mm-hmm. And so one time we went to a movie, and it was a double feature, and it didn't get out until 11:30, and I thought, oh boy, we better catch a bus and go back so we wouldn't be late. Unbeknown to me, the first time I'd taken the bus, it went through the whole camp before it got to our barracks. So when we got there, we were 5 minutes late. We were 5 after. So they called me in the next day and said, well, you're going to have to do overtime for your for being late. So I had to go out into the sunflower field and cut stalks and stuff them in burlap bags for bayonet practice for 5 nights. Oh. For 5 minutes and 5 nights, and it'd be about 2 hours every night after hours after dinner.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So it was on our own time. Wow.
They really wanted you to be on time.
Yeah.
Clearly.
So, yeah. They taught you strict rules, and you learned in a hurry.
Where did you go? So you had basic at Fort Riley. Where did you go from Fort Riley?
Fort Riley, we went to Camp Maxey, Texas, outside of Paris, Texas. And there, all of our training at Fort Riley, we thought was infantry training. So when we were bused to Camp Maxey, we kept driving through the barracks camp, and it was all infantry. We thought, oh boy, we're headed for the infantry. Well, finally they let us off in a brand new area that they hadn't completely finished yet. The barracks hadn't been totally done. And it was there we found out that they had organized the 92nd Signal Battalion. So that's where it originated, right there at Camp Maxey. And so then I was in the motor pool and trained, and that's when I got court-martialed. Well, I guess it would have been a court martial because we needed our equipment, our trucks, and there was nothing there. It was just brand new. So we went to San Antonio to pick up a fleet of trucks, and we were driving back, and I was driving a staff car, bringing up the rear of the convoy. Well, we were coming through Austin, Texas, and that's a college town. And the couple of young girls that were fooling around with the convoy, you know, and the convoy is hard to follow. When you take off, you got to get distance, so that you took off real slow. You'd be driving along 5 miles an hour and then gradually pick up. Well, then when you'd get to a city, you'd have to close in. And then I was in the very back of it. I had about 1.5 miles to close in order to catch up with the rest of the convoy. Well, when I caught up with it, then all at once everything come to a slowdown or a stop. And I stopped, and the 2 gals that was following, they didn't stop. They hit the back of the
Staff car.
my car,
Yeah.
and that I was close enough to the truck ahead, so they pushed me into it, so it sandwiched the car, and I didn't get hurt, but they were pretty shook up, and then I see some cuts. They weren't, you know, seriously hurt, but they were injured. Well, then, so it got back home, or back to camp, and a few days later, well, I had to appear in court about the situation, you know, and I had never been to court or had anything to do with it, so I was pretty ignorant about the whole thing, but I was a little old farm boy, you know, but it was all cleared. I had no charges against me.
So John, I'm going to jump a little bit. I know that eventually you ended up at Cap Schanck, New York, and from there you kind of boarded a transport ship for England. Do you remember anything about the voyage going over to England?
I do, but before that, you know, in this training, we at different times went on maneuvers to Camp Polk, Louisiana, and we would live in tents there for a couple, 10 days, or a couple of weeks at a time, and so then we'd go back from training, and they would. That's when we got on a train and headed for New York.
For New York, okay. So you ended up on the USS Anne Arundel. Was the troop transport ship you took? I mean, was it very crowded? Were there a lot of people?
There was a lot of people, and it was in the hold down below. They were just hammocks that you slept in, and about 4 or 5 high, and it was hot down there. So and besides that, after we got out of the harbor and started moving, they started getting sick, and then they would throw up all over, you know, and it was a mess. I spent most of my voyage on deck up in the upper deck and out in the air.
Did you sleep there? Or?
I'd sleep there, yeah.
Okay.
I wouldn't go down unless I just had to.
Well, what did you do to pass the time? I mean,
well, you just sat around. Everybody had a game or something that they could play, you know, and there'd be different games, and you'd just sit around and visit, and it just didn't have much to do at all. No duties, and
how many days was it? Was it 5 days?
It took us 11 days.
11 days. That's a long time to have nothing to do.
Yeah, and there was a convoy, but we were escorted with
destroyers.
the big ships.
Carriers.
Coast Guard, not the Coast Guard, there's destroyers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
We were.
Was there a lot of concern about U-boats attacks? I mean, they were.
Well, there was a time or two when they had an alert
Okay.
on the way, but
Okay. So you arrived in England, Liverpool, and you went from there. You went to Belfast, I believe.
well, we didn't get off the ship.
Oh, okay. You just
They
stayed.
arrived there, and part of the troops got off of the ship. Then we were there, I don't know, maybe a day or so, and then we went on up to Belfast, Ireland, North Ireland.
Okay.
And it was there that we got off. Then we moved inland on a train to Lurgan,
Right.
North Ireland. And there we continued our training somewhat. Now, I was in the motor pool, of course, and so it was there that Lieutenant Nathan and I, he was the motor pool officer, we went to North Ireland to one of their camps and had training for driving vehicles underwater. And so I went through that training, and everything, all the vents and everything. The only thing that was you had to do is to have a pipe up for intake air, but the exhaust went right out underwater.
Oh, okay.
And so you had to make sure that the water couldn't get into the carburetor, the ignition, anything. Everything had to be closed off. And so then I was there for 2 weeks in training. Then after I trained, I had worked on one of our jigs, and after we trained, we went out